Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. In this world, there are many kinds of knowledge, and there are different ways to interact with knowledge. The intellect interacts with knowledge, and wisdom interacts with knowledge. There is a difference.
In immortality, you live forever.
Between.
Would you not return your mind to this?
There is a difference between intellect and what it knows, and wisdom and what it knows. Intellect hits a wall at a certain state and is incapable of going further than that state. Wisdom picks up where intellect leaves off. Intellect leaves off at this world. Wisdom takes you beyond this world. Our sheikh, our teacher, told us that to learn without the influence of a sheikh, to learn without the mentorship of a sheikh, to learn without a sheikh being involved in our learning is a shadow of the truth. It can't be the truth. That's because the truth is beyond intellect. And unless you have a teacher in your life who is beyond intellect, what you know will hit a wall. And the understandings that you will come to have will also be limited to the way the world understands things, as opposed to the way reality knows things. So you will end up with the parameters of what is known in illusion, what is accepted in illusion, as opposed to being encompassed by truth and what is understood by truth. In the world of illusion, man deals with compartmentalizations. He deals with separations. He deals with mine and yours. He deals with I have and you don't. He deals with I understand and you don't. In the world of truth, we go beyond the separations that exist by understanding things through the intellect. We go beyond the duality of the existence in the illusory world, and we enter into the world of unity. The Sheikh said that without the teachings from a Sheikh, there is no true progress in understanding the truth. Now, if you look at religions, you will see that in each of the religions, you have the lay clergy, and then beyond the lay clergy, every once in a while, people pop up who are extraordinary, who somehow have breached the illusory world and have connected to the world of truth. And we can give examples of this really easily. Saint Francis of Assisi in Catholicism, various exalted gurus in Hinduism, the Buddha in Buddhism, the Baal Shem Tov and his disciples in Judaism, and of course, the great sheikhs of Sufism, Rumi, Abdul Qadir Jilani, and of course, our sheikh, mentor, and Qutub, Muhammad Rahim Bawa Muhaiyaddeen. These men have gone that extra step. These men know that extra step. These men know the difference between the illusory world and the world of truth. And in order to learn about the world of truth, you have to learn from someone who knows the world of truth, someone who is in communion with God, someone who that flow goes through continually. In this world, there are ponds and there are lakes, and the ponds especially depend on rainwater or a spring in order to feed them. The pond can say, if it wasn't for me, everyone would go thirsty. But in truth, if it wasn't for the spring that fed the pond wouldn't exist. If it wasn't for the rainwater that fed the pond wouldn't exist. So the pond's arrogance in its existence is false. The pond is fed. Likewise, if we are to know anything, if we are to understand anything, at the base of our understanding is that all knowledge comes from God. All learning comes from God. All truth comes from God. Reality comes from God. And if we try to find reality anywhere else besides God, it's a useless venture. There is no existence alongside Allah, because other than him, there is nothing. We need to somehow understand that. Nothing veils us that is next to him, because there is nothing next to him. What veils us from him is our intellect and our ability to conceive notions outside of truth. And that's what our intellect does. It conceives notions outside of reality. It conceives notions within the illusory world of this elemental nature that we live in. Now, to understand that, we have to understand the limitations of what we call the intellect. Now, the intellect can build rocket ships that go to Mars. The intellect can build radios and televisions that send signals through the air. The intellect can build computers that can tie into all sources of knowledge, but all of this knowledge is limited to worldly knowledge within the illusory world, within the world of illusion, within the temporary manifestation that we live in for a certain period of time. the temporary manifestation that makes us believe that there is a totality to our existence, when in truth, it is a limited existence. It's limited to interaction within the elemental world. And this limitation also has an end to it. It has an end point to it where it is cut off. And we, each of us, has to, within our lifetime, recognize this somehow. We have to recognize that the nature of our existence is limited, and that the nature of our existence within this material world made up of the elements is going to come to an end. And that if we want to find the way towards an eternal existence, which, by the way, can and was granted to us by our Lord if we comported to certain rules, if we comported to certain understandings, can become available to us. So the question we should be asking ourselves is, how can we find this? How can we understand this? How can we take all this on? To begin with, God has no arrogance. Why? Because he is everything. There's nothing to be arrogant about. It is all his. He has created everything that we see, and he is without being created. He is and always was. Now, we are here as a derivative being, as a being that was created by him. So, what is it that we have to begin to understand? First, we are dependent on our Lord and our Creator. And since we are dependent on our Lord and our Creator, we cannot take pride in anything that we've done or we've accomplished. We can't be prideful. If we become prideful, we have mistaken what we have accomplished because we think we have accomplished it. And in truth, since God is all that exists, God has accomplished it. So we are taking pride in what God did. We need to become small. The first part of progress towards truth is to become small, to become humble, to become without a great opinion of ourselves. That great opinion should be given to God, and in humility, we should give him all praise for anything that we accomplish and for anything that we do. For instance, you get a apple tree and you plant the apple tree, and every day you water the apple tree, and soon, after a period of time, the apple tree gives forth fruit. Now, did you create the fruit because you watered the apple tree? Did your watering create the fruit? The fruit was there. God made the fruit, and the fruit is given freely by the apple tree, but the one who waters it is not the giver. The one who waters it is an intermediary in helping within this material world certain things to happen. But if we take pride in that, we've lost the understanding of the true nature of things. When we feel distant from God, when we feel that things are in the way between us and God, we should understand that that is not reality. The distance between ourselves and God, what separates us from God, what creates the veils that separate us from God, are the creations of our own mind. Because in truth, nothing separates us from truth. Nothing separates us from reality. And if we can give up holding on to our ideas of reality, and we can let them all go, then reality will rise within us. You see, innate within each and every one of us is the understanding of the truth. But what happens is that because of our attachment to the illusory world, we block that innate understanding. We block that direct connection. And that's why we need a teacher who is beyond that. We need a teacher in whom that direct connection is not blocked. We need a teacher who has somehow gotten beyond that blockage that comes from the intellect. So we need a teacher who is in effect mindless. They are without the interference of the mind because they have gone to wisdom. And wisdom is innate in you if you can let go of your own ideas and your own ways of understanding and seeing things. Only then can you begin to know the truth. And being in the presence of one who knows the truth is a grace for each of our lives, because within that presence is a resonance. And within that resonance comes a vibration that, at least for the moment when we're within their presence, lets us feel reality. And one of the things that happens when we feel reality is that the import of the world becomes less. All of the difficulties of the world become less, because in the world of light, which is the world beyond this illusory world, all of these things don't matter. All of these things don't have the same import that they did within this world. Everything here from the world of light can be seen, if we look at this world, as temporary and without real substance. But our mind can only see this world. And our mind insists that this world has substance. And our mind insists that this world is real because it's all that it knows. And our mind is afraid to contemplate something else because it's afraid that it will disappear. And the mind is terrified of change, terrified of new circumstances, terrified of walking on the edge of reality. So as we contemplate the truth, we should contemplate the fact that we need to be under the influence of someone who's been under the influence of the truth. We need to be under the influence of someone who has been directed either directly from the divine or through an intermediary, which is a sheikh, to find the way towards the truth. And if we can be strong enough within ourselves, then we may be able to accomplish finding the truth. But to do it, there are some things you're going to have to give up. And these things are difficult to give up. You're going to have to give up your blood ties. You're going to have to give up your religion. You're going to have to give up all your understandings that have come to you over the years. You're going to have to give up all of your prejudices. You're going to have to give up all of your separations. You're going to have to give up everything that separates you from every other man. You're going to have to give up your self-identity in order to claim your true identity. And everyone is afraid to give up this identity. Why? Because you've spent a lifetime reinforcing this identity. You've spent a lifetime answering the question, who are you? What are you? What do you do? Where are you from? And all of these things become real. You've said them so many times. What do you do? I'm a nurse. What do you do? I'm a real estate broker. What do you do? I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm a physicist, I'm a chemist, etc. As if these things had a reality. We are none of these things. Where are you from? Well, we all label a country, we all label a city, and in truth, we are from our mother's womb. And wherever she happened to be at that moment when birth occurred is where we're from. But the reality is we're from our mother's womb. And that is our true homeland. Yet we conjecture that we are from some specific place. We are from some specific country. We are from some specific race. We are from some specific nationality. We are from some specific language. Imagine if your mother was living in Turkey and then she moved to the United States and you were born in the United States. Well, all of a sudden, your language would be English instead of Turkish. Your nationality would be American as opposed to Turkish, etc., etc., etc. But is there really any reality to all of this? Now, there's a reality with it within the confines of this illusory world. But what is the reality if we step outside of this illusory world? What is the reality of all of these things that we have used to define us when we step outside of this illusory world? If you take a tree and you cut it down and you make timber out of it, you make boards out of it, you can build a house from it, you can build furniture from it, you can do lots of things with it within this world. But take a body that has passed. Within 3 days, it begins to smell and you have to bury it. in order to do away with that smell. There is no use to this body. This body is only of use while it's alive. And that life is not going to last. Just as life is given to this body, life is taken from this body. Life has a time limit. Life has a span. But there's more to us than this body. And we need to understand what that more is. So we need to concentrate on that part of us which is eternal. And to find that part of us which is eternal, we have to concentrate on that part of us which is unified to the rest of humanity. If we can't do that, we can't find the eternal part of us. Charity is one way to relate to the rest of humanity. True charity comes from the giver, goes to the recipient, and creates a fulfillment. Both are satisfied in the way that God gives. Does God ask you for anything in return for the breath that he gives you? No, he gives it out of his generosity, out of his kindness, and out of his love. So when true charity is given, generosity arises within the being. Love arises within the being. Kindness arises within the being that gives. Now, why is this important? Because generosity is one of the attributes of God. Mercy and compassion are attributes of God. And if you can do things that arouse generosity, mercy, and compassion within you, then you have brought forth within you godlike tendencies, godlike qualities. And if you give that to someone else, they are in recipient of godlike qualities, godlike tendencies. So there is a circle that imitates the circle with our Lord. Our Lord gives from a cornucopia of wealth that is without limit. If we learn to give without having to consider the benefit or harm to us, we are beginning to act godlike. But if we give worrying about how it's going to affect us, what the consequences are for us, there is no real giving. There is no real generosity. There is no real mercy. There is no real compassion. There is just an outward act that's holding everything back, a constrained act which doesn't open us up, which doesn't do any good to us. In order to understand the reality of charity, we have to understand the needs of other people. And if we cannot give charity wholeheartedly because of the fact that needs exists, then we have to begin to understand deprivation. And God has given fasting as a way for man to understand deprivation. And once man can understand deprivation, then man can give more freely. Man can give without holding back. So if you can't give without holding back, learn deprivation, fast. Put that into your system of things so that you can understand the nature of things better. You may have noticed as you go through this existence that sorrow is part of everything that you see, and that difficulties are part of everything that you see. Well, sorrow has been built in to this world. And because of the sorrow that is within this illusory world, it should give you a reason to find another world where sorrow doesn't exist. When we lose loved ones, we go through a period of mourning, we go through a period of deprivation, we go through a period of sorrow. But if we truly understand that beyond this world, they are in another place, they have entered into a world of light, they have entered into a kingdom of light, they have entered into God's kingdom, then we can understand the flow of what goes on in this world. And the flow is such that this is a temporary holding cell. We are here for a period of time, and then we move on. And in moving on, we have to prepare for the next phase of our life. And how do we prepare for the next phase in our life? You've all heard the saying, you can't take it with you. And you can't. You can't take the material world with you. You can't take the elemental world with you. You can't take the wealth of this world with you. You can't take the house that you live in with you. You can't take the car that you drive with you. But there are things that you can take with you. There are things that not only can you take with you, they create the vehicle for you to transfer from this world to the next world. And what are they? They are the attributes and the qualities of our Lord. The inner part of you, the part inside of your heart, can take on compassion. It can take on mercy. And your acts of compassion and mercy are the vehicle that transfer you from this world to the next. And if you can't take these things within you, if you can't become these qualities, if you can't be this way, then the possibility of your traveling to the next world is diminished. And that's why often when people pray, they become afraid and they ask for things. Imagine, though, what this asking is actually doing. When you are asking for things for yourself, you're accusing your Lord of not having provided sufficiently for you. I mean, think about that. Asking is accusing your Lord of not providing sufficiently for you. Your Lord has given you everything that you need. And we need to become satisfied with what he's given us. In that state of satisfaction, in that state of wholeness, we become more like him, and we are closer to him. In the state where we are unsatisfied, in the state where we are not content, again, our mind has separated us from our Lord, thinking there is something that we need that we don't have, and we can't become whole until we have it. You are whole. We are all whole. We have been given everything that we need, and all doubt has been implanted in us in order to move us away from our Lord and to keep us stationed within this illusory world, within this world that is a lie. So we, each of us, has to give up all doubt. Each of us has to give up all need. Each of us has to give up ourself and rely on God alone to provide for us. And when we can do that, we will become whole. We will become content. We will become satisfied. We will become luminous because we take on the nature of our Creator. May it come to pass for each of us that we understand these lessons and we understand this way. And we know that the way to truth is the way to unity, that the way to truth is to the acceptance of all mankind, that the way to truth is the acceptance of every belief system, that the way to truth is not to deny anyone, not to separate ourselves from anyone, but to be all-inclusive. Everyone was created by our one Lord. So who are we to separate ourselves from anyone? May we all come to know the truth. May we all come to know reality. May we all come to know our Lord, and may we all enter into his world of light. Ameen, ameen, ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.